Western Sydney mayors are calling for an apology and a parliamentary inquiry into how lockdowns were managed through the height of this year's COVID outbreak. Residents of Sydney's former 12 local government areas of concern were subjected to tighter restrictions and a heavy police presence compared to the rest of the city, but that was not the health advice at the time, according to an email released under a parliamentary order.
Sydney should have been locked down equally.
Look at Melbourne, look at Brisbane. They locked down the whole state, not to choose and select which suburbs they're going to lock down.
Sydney's Delta outbreak started on June 16 when a limousine driver transporting a flight crew acquired the virus and then attended venues in Bondi. Despite early calls to lock down the eastern suburbs to curb the spread, a Greater Sydney lockdown did not begin until June 26, 10 days later. Cases began escalating in Western Sydney and the then Premier Gladys Berejiklian ordered harsh restrictions in 12 local government areas in West and Southwest Sydney. She consistently argued she was following the health advice when pressed on why inconsistent health orders were implemented at her daily COVID briefings. On August 14, Chief Health Officer Dr Kerry Chant sent an email to health officials and Health Minister Brad Hazzard saying this is the worst outbreak in Australia during the pandemic, and goes on to mention the escalating situation across Western Sydney and recommends increased action in Western Sydney and the Blue Mountains, but calls for consistent measures across Greater Metropolitan Sydney with outdoor masks, a consistent 5-kilometre rule and authorised workers only. That morning, at her 11 a.m. press conference, Gladys Berejiklian announced big increases in police-issued fines and extra ADF personnel to be deployed in Western Sydney. Residents in hotspots were restricted to 5-kilometre travel from home.
There will be a visible and increased police presence in the affected local government areas.
Police Commissioner Mick Fuller then announced Operation Stay at Home, and in the following weeks, police enforcement was dramatically escalated in West and Southwest Sydney. A New South Wales Bureau of Crime Statistics and Research report warned of the high volume of fines being handed out in Sydney's areas of concern and found those with recent involvement with police were most likely to be targeted.
It was constant fear for the children. I think that is what hurt me the most.
Bankstown Mayor Carl Ashford is joining other mayors in Western Sydney in calling for an inquiry into the handling of the pandemic and wants an apology from the government.
Well, she didn't follow the health advice and they lied to us. They said every day that we were all in this together, and we weren't all in this together.
Here at the Bankstown Seniors Citizen Centre, pre-polling for the local council elections is underway. And speaking to locals here on and off camera, there's clearly a lot of anger about how they were treated through the lockdown. And while recognising that this was largely a state issue, some say it would affect how they would vote in the federal election next year.
The people angry, they don't forget easily, especially in this area, they don't forget easily.
We've got a federal election coming up next year. Is this going to affect your vote?
Yes, it is.
Premier Dominic Perrottet says he is proud of the decisions made during the crisis.
I said at the time I didn't want to see a tale of two cities, and we have not. I see one New South Wales.
This whole idea that we should shut down parts of Sydney because they didn't have any virus in them to make other people feel better is rubbish.
This is the first bit of information we've seen in black and white, and it clearly indicates that the government's process of effectively dividing Sydney and making tough restrictions for Western Sydney and Southwestern Sydney was the wrong thing to do.
Here in Western Sydney, the emotional scars from the lockdown remain.
It was very hard for us, very hard.
Kenny Heatley, Sky News, Sydney.